I watched my husband cradle newborn twins while my own marriage collapsed in front of me. I filed for divorce that same week. But as I was leaving my attorney's office, my mother-in-law grabbed my arm, turned ghost white, and whispered, "She didn't tell you, did she?" Those 6 words changed everything I thought I knew. My name is Hannah Collins. I'm 34 years old, and until 2 years ago, I believed betrayal had a limit. I was wrong. Sometimes the people you trust most don't just break your heart. They rewrite your entire past. I met my husband, Daniel, when I was 26. We were both teachers at neighboring middle schools. He taught history. I taught English. He made me laugh on days when grading papers felt endless. I loved how ordinary our life was. Saturday grocery shopping. Sunday morning coffee. Movie nights on our old couch. Nothing extravagant. Just peaceful. We married after 3 years together. My younger sister, Chloe, was my maid of honor. She was 4 years younger than me, outgoing, funny, and fearless. Growing up, everyone adored her. I never minded. She had a way of making every room brighter. At least, that's what I believed. After our parents died within 18 months of each other, Chloe and I became even closer. I helped her finish college. When she struggled with rent, Daniel and I let her stay in our guest room for 6 months. She called me her second mother. Looking back, I wish I had noticed how often she looked at my husband. It started with little things. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Text messages that stopped when I entered the room. Daniel insisting Chloe join us for dinner even after she'd moved out. Whenever I questioned it, he smiled. She's family. I wanted to believe him. For years, I did. Meanwhile, Daniel and I faced another heartbreak. We couldn't have children. After countless appointments, doctors explained that pregnancy would be extremely difficult for me. I cried for weeks. Daniel held me every night. "We'll be okay," he'd whisper. "We have each other." I believed every word. Then everything changed one rainy afternoon. I was leaving work when my phone rang. It was my friend Melissa. "Hannah." Her voice sounded strange. "I think you need to sit down." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "I just saw Daniel." "So?" "He wasn't alone." I forced a laugh. "Probably another teacher." Silence. Then she quietly said, "He was at the maternity clinic." My smile disappeared. "Are you sure?" I spoke to him. He introduced the woman beside him as family. "And?" Melissa hesitated. She looked about 8 months pregnant. My hands began shaking. I called Daniel immediately. No answer. Again. No answer. That evening he came home acting perfectly normal. "How was work?" I stared at him. "Were you at Riverbend Women's Clinic today?" His face froze. Only for a second. Then he smiled. "I dropped off paperwork for someone." "For who?" He looked away. "Chloe." The room became painfully quiet. "What paperwork?" "Medical paperwork." I felt something inside me crack. "Why are you handling my sister's pregnancy appointments?" He sighed dramatically. "Hannah." She asked for help. "She's alone." I couldn't explain why, but every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. Over the next month, Daniel became increasingly distant. Late meetings. Weekend errands. Phone calls taken outside. Whenever Chloe visited, conversation stopped the moment I entered. Then one morning I drove past the small house I had helped Chloe rent. Daniel's truck sat outside. It was 7:30. He had told me he was already at school. I parked across the street. 20 minutes later. They walked out together. Laughing. He kissed her forehead. Not romantically. But intimately. The kind of gesture people don't even think about. Because it feels natural. I drove away before they saw me. I cried so hard I had to pull into a parking lot. That evening I confronted both of them. I saw you. Daniel didn't even deny visiting. It isn't what you think. Then explain. Chloe stared at the floor. Daniel answered. I've been helping her. Helping? She's pregnant. I know that. Who's the father? Silence. Nobody spoke. Finally, Chloe whispered. Daniel. I honestly thought I'd misheard. What? She began crying. They're his. Everything around me seemed to disappear. The walls. The furniture. Even the sound of my own breathing. You're lying. Daniel stepped forward. Hannah. Please let me explain. I backed away. There is nothing to explain. My husband. My sister. Twins. The three people I trusted most had destroyed my life. Within 48 hours, I packed my belongings. A week later, I filed for divorce. People kept asking why I didn't scream. Why I didn't throw things. The truth? Some pain is so deep. It leaves you completely silent. Friends chose sides. Neighbors whispered. At school, rumors spread before I even told anyone. Some believed Daniel had simply fallen in love with someone else. Others couldn't believe Chloe would betray me. I stopped trying to defend myself. I just wanted it to end. Then the twins were born. I didn't go to the hospital. I couldn't. But photographs appeared online anyway. Daniel holding one baby. Chloe holding the other. They looked like a happy family. Every picture felt like another knife. The divorce moved quickly. Neither of us argued over money. We owned very little together. There were no children to consider. I simply wanted freedom. The final hearing lasted less than 30 minutes. As I walked out of the courthouse carrying my paperwork, someone called my name. Hannah. I turned. It was Daniel's mother, Patricia. She looked exhausted. Older than I remembered. She grabbed my wrist gently. I've been trying to reach you. I'm not interested. She looked around to make sure no one could hear. Then her face lost all color. She didn't tell you. Did she? I frowned. Tell me what? Patricia's eyes filled with tears. The twins. She struggled to breathe. They aren't why your marriage ended. I stared at her. What are you talking about? She whispered one sentence that made my entire world stop. Chloe wasn't the one who betrayed you first. And before she could explain another word, Daniel appeared across the courthouse steps, shouting her name. Daniel's voice echoed across the courthouse steps. Mom. Stop. Patricia flinched like she'd been caught doing something terrible. She looked at me with desperate eyes. I'll tell you everything tonight. Please, just don't let him stop me again. Before I could answer, Daniel reached us. What are you doing? He snapped at his mother. She straightened her shoulders. I'm tired of lying. His face went pale. Hannah, don't listen to her. I've listened to you for 8 years, I said quietly. Now it's her turn. Patricia pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse and slipped it into my hand. My address. 7 o'clock. Then she walked away without another word. Daniel watched her leave before turning back to me. She's confused. No, I replied. I think she's finally honest. That evening, I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to leave my entire past behind. But another part needed answers. At exactly 7, I knocked on Patricia's front door. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. Without saying a word, she led me to the dining room. Several old photo albums and a worn leather folder sat on the table. I've carried this guilt for years, she whispered. I should have told you before the wedding. My chest tightened. What guilt? She opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, text messages, and handwritten notes. I found these after Daniel changed phones years ago. I confronted him, and he begged me not to destroy his marriage. My hands trembled as I picked up the papers. The dates made my stomach drop. They were from almost 6 years earlier. Long before Chloe became pregnant. Long before we separated. One message from Chloe read, "She trusts us both. She'll never know." Another from Daniel answered, "This has to stop after the wedding." It hadn't started recently. It had started before I married him. I couldn't breathe. Patricia nodded. They began an emotional affair before your wedding. Tears blurred my vision. They promised me they'd end it. They swore it was only messages. I believed them. I sat there in complete silence. The affair hadn't destroyed my marriage. It had been built into it from the beginning. Then Patricia handed me something else. A hospital envelope. You deserve to know the whole truth. Inside was a DNA report. I frowned. This? They tested the twins. Why? Her lips trembled. Because Daniel asked for the test. I looked at her in confusion. He didn't trust Chloe. My eyes widened. What? She told him there was another man around the same time. I stared at the report. Daniel Collins. Probability of paternity. 0%. I looked up in shock. He's not their father? Patricia slowly shook her head. No. I couldn't believe it. But she told everyone. I know. She lied. I leaned back in my chair, completely numb. So, she destroyed my marriage. For children that weren't even his? Patricia covered her face. He only learned the truth after they were born. And instead of admitting everything, they kept lying. I walked out of that house feeling like the ground beneath me had disappeared. For weeks, I couldn't process it. Daniel had betrayed me. Chloe had betrayed me. Then Chloe had lied to him too. Every relationship in that triangle had been built on deception. A month later, another surprise arrived. Daniel asked to meet. I almost refused. Curiosity won. We met at a quiet coffee shop. He looked exhausted. Nothing like the confident man I'd married. I know my mother told you. I nodded. Was it true? He closed his eyes. Yes. The DNA test was real. I studied him carefully. Why didn't you tell everyone? He laughed bitterly. Because admitting the twins weren't mine meant admitting I'd destroyed my marriage for nothing. There was no anger left inside me. Only sadness. I loved you, I whispered. I know. You were my safest place. He lowered his head. And I became the reason you stopped feeling safe. For the first time. He didn't make excuses. He simply accepted responsibility. Then came the final twist. 3 months later, our hometown hosted its annual charity gala. Nearly everyone attended. Teachers. Business owners. Neighbors. Even both of our extended families. I almost skipped it. Then I realized something. I wasn't the one who should hide. Halfway through the evening, Chloe walked in. People immediately noticed. Whispers spread across the ballroom. She confidently approached our family table. Before she could speak, one of the organizers walked onto the stage. We'd like to recognize this year's largest donor. To my surprise, they called my name. Over the past year, I'd quietly started a literacy foundation using part of the settlement from selling our marital home. We had already opened reading programs in 3 schools. As I walked to the stage, the audience applauded. When I finished speaking, someone asked if I'd like to thank my family. I looked across the room. At Daniel. At Chloe. At Patricia. Then I smiled gently. I want to thank the people who taught me the difference between love and loyalty. The lesson was painful, but it saved the rest of my life. The room became completely silent. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. Everyone understood. Chloe quietly left before the event ended. Months later, I heard she'd moved to another state with the twins. The biological father had refused any involvement. Daniel eventually resigned from his teaching position and started over in another town. We never spoke again. Patricia still sends me a Christmas card every year. Inside, she always writes the same sentence. I'm sorry I didn't choose courage sooner. For a long time, I wondered whether karma was real. I don't think karma is watching someone else lose everything. I think karma is living every day with the truth you tried to bury. As for me, I eventually rebuilt my life. Not because the people who hurt me suffered, but because I finally understood something they never did. A family isn't defined by blood, or marriage, or promises spoken at a wedding. It's defined by the people who protect your heart when they have every opportunity to break it. And once I learned that, I stopped mourning the family I lost. I started building the one I truly deserved.